She collapsed in the rain after her divorce and woke up in a millionaire's arms. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The rain poured over downtown New York like it was trying to wash away the whole city. Cars splashed through the puddles, their headlights blurring into streaks of white and gold. On the corner of 54th Street, Elena Ward stood drenched to the bone, clutching a crumpled divorce paper against her chest. The ink had started to bleed, much like her hope. She had not planned to drink tonight, but pain had a way of twisting promises. The bottle of red wine she carried was half empty by the time she reached the crosswalk. Her wedding ring was gone, her phone silent, and her heart heavier than the rain-soaked coat clinging to her body. She tried to hail a cab, but no one stopped. To them, she was just another lost woman on another cold night. Lightning cracked above, followed by the deep growl of thunder. Her heels slipped on the slick sidewalk, and the world tilted. For a brief second she saw her reflection in the puddle mascara running down her face, eyes hollow, a ghost of the woman she used to be. Then everything went black. When Elena opened her eyes, the light was soft and warm, nothing like the city's neon glare. She blinked, confused. A faint scent of antiseptic and rain lingered in the air. She was lying in a bed, clean sheets, white walls, an IV line running to her arm. Panic rose in her chest. Where was she? Who brought her here? Then she heard the low hum of a male voice from the corner. "Easy," the voice said gently. "You are safe." She turned her head. Standing by the window was a man in his 30s, tall, composed, dressed in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His dark hair was slightly damp, his gaze calm but observant. He set down a cup of coffee and approached her. "I am Adrien," he said. "You collapsed in the rain outside my building last night. The hospital was full, so I brought you here. You had mild hypothermia." Elena's lips parted. "You brought me here? Why?" "Because you were about to fall unconscious in the middle of traffic," he replied simply. "I could not just walk away." She studied him. Everything about him, his steady tone, his quiet confidence, felt disarming. The faint glint of a watch on his wrist, the understated luxury of the room, the way he spoke to her without judgment. He was not just anyone. "Where exactly is here?" she asked. "This is Wingston Private Care Center," Adrien said. "My family built it years ago. I manage it now." Her breath caught. Wingston. She had seen that name on a glass tower downtown, one of the most prestigious medical foundations in the city. "You are a doctor?" she asked. He smiled slightly. "No. A businessman who learned the hard way that money means very little when you lose someone you love." His words hung in the air. Elena turned away, staring at the IV drip. Her throat tightened. She wanted to thank him, but gratitude felt too small for a man who had saved her from drowning in her own despair. Adrien poured her a glass of water and placed it beside the bed. "Drink slowly. You have been through a lot." She hesitated, then asked softly, "Did I say anything when you found me?" He paused, his eyes softening. "Yes," he said. "You asked the rain to make you disappear." Her chest ached. She pressed her palms to her face, trying to hold back tears. "I guess it did not listen." "No," Adrien murmured, his voice almost a whisper. "It sent you somewhere better." The room fell quiet except for the steady rhythm of the heart monitor beside her. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, leaving only the faint shimmer of dawn. For the first time in months, Elena did not feel like running. Adrien adjusted the blinds, letting sunlight spill across the room. "Rest for now," he said. "You can tell me your story when you are ready." As he left the room, Elena's gaze followed him. The man who had pulled her from the rain moved with a calm certainty, like someone who had been through his own storm and survived. She lay back, staring at the ceiling. Her fingers brushed the chain around her neck, the only thing she still wore from her old life. The pendant had cracked when she fell, a small break that somehow felt symbolic. For the first time since the divorce, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this is not the end." Outside, the city began to wake, and somewhere in the quiet hum of morning so did she. The next morning came quietly, wrapped in a pale gold light that slipped through the blinds. Elena blinked awake, her head heavy but her body warm for the first time in days. The steady rhythm of her heartbeat echoed in the still room. For a few seconds she did not know where she was until she saw the IV stand beside her and remembered the man with the calm voice from last night. A soft knock came at the door. Adrien stepped inside holding 2 mugs. "Good morning," he said, his tone even steady. "Chamomile tea. Helps with the headache." Elena hesitated before taking the cup. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from uncertainty. "You did not have to do all this," she said quietly. "I wanted to," Adrien replied. "The doctor said you just need rest. No injuries, just exhaustion and dehydration." She nodded, sipping slowly. The tea was warm and soothing, the kind of comfort she had forgotten existed. Adrien sat across from her, giving her space. "You work here?" she asked. "Yes," he said after a moment. "I run the foundation. I started it a few years ago after losing someone close to me." There was a pause. The weight behind his words was unmistakable. Elena did not press. She understood grief when she heard it. He stood and walked to the window. "You can stay as long as you need. There are private recovery suites on this floor. You will have meals, therapy sessions, anything you need. It is not a hospital. Think of it as a place where people begin again." Elena looked down at the tea swirling in her cup. "Begin again," she repeated softly. "That sounds nice, but some people do not get to." Adrien turned toward her. "Everyone does. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them how." Their eyes met for a moment, and something in her chest loosened just a little. Later that day, a nurse named Clara helped her walk around the garden on the rooftop. The city stretched far below endless glass and motion, but up here it felt distant, muted. Rows of lavender lined the path, their fragrance mingling with the clean air. "He planted all of these," Clara said with a smile. "Every flower, every tree. Said it helps the patients breathe again." Elena touched one of the blossoms gently. "He does not seem like the type who needs healing," she murmured. "Oh, he needed it more than anyone," Clara replied softly. "After his wife passed, he nearly shut this whole place down. But then he came back one day and said, 'If I could not save her, maybe I can save someone else.'" Elena's throat tightened. She did not know what to say, so she just nodded, the wind tugging at her hair. When she returned to her room, she found a small tray waiting on the table, a bowl of soup, a note beside it in neat handwriting. "You will feel better when you eat something warm. A." She smiled faintly. For months no one had cared enough to notice if she had eaten or slept. She had been invisible even to herself. Now a stranger noticed. Days passed quietly. Adrien stopped by every evening with the same gentle routine tea, a short conversation and silence that never felt uncomfortable. Sometimes he brought a book, other times just stories about the people who had recovered here. Artists, soldiers, teachers, all learning to rebuild their lives. One night Elena asked him, "Why do you still come here every day? You must have better things to do." He gave a small smile. "I like seeing people remember who they are." "What if they do not like who they were?" she asked. "Then they get to choose who they become next." The simplicity of his answer stayed with her long after he left. That night she could not sleep. She walked to the window, looking out at the city lights reflecting off the glass buildings. She thought about the man who had found her the place that did not feel like a hospital, and the quiet possibility that maybe life was not finished with her yet. She whispered into the stillness, "Thank you, whoever you are." Outside, the night breeze carried the faint scent of lavender through the open window, as if answering back. Days at Wingston Private Care Center began to blend together like gentle waves. For Elena, each sunrise brought a little less pain and a little more silence she could bear. She began to follow a quiet routine: morning tea, a short walk in the rooftop garden, an hour with the therapist, and evenings that often ended with Adrien bringing her tea or books. One morning she woke up to the sound of soft piano music echoing through the hallway. Curious, she followed the melody until it led her to a small conservatory at the far end of the building. Their sunlight poured through glass walls, and in the center sat Adrien, his fingers gliding slowly over the piano keys. It was not a perfect performance. He missed a few notes, hesitated once, but the way he played felt raw and human. Elena stood quietly at the doorway. When the song ended, Adrien looked up and smiled. "You are up early." "I heard the music," she said softly. "It sounded peaceful." "It was my wife's favorite song," he said. "She used to play it every Sunday morning. I stopped for a while after she passed. Could not stand the silence that followed." Elena stepped closer, resting her hands on the edge of the piano. And now I play it to remember her in a better way, Adrien said. Grief used to feel like a weight. Lately it feels more like a shadow that walks beside me. She listened, unsure how to answer. His honesty stirred something deep inside her. She knew what it was like to carry pain until it became part of her breathing. Later that day, Adrien invited her to join him for lunch in the garden. The table was set simply grilled vegetables, soup, and lemonade. As they ate, the conversation drifted from weather to memories, to things neither of them thought they would ever say out loud. I spent 6 years building a marriage that fell apart in 6 months, Elena admitted. After the divorce, I stopped painting. It used to be everything to me. You should start again, Adrien said without hesitation. Sometimes the only way to stop hurting is to turn pain into something new. She smiled faintly. You make it sound easy. It is not, he said, but it is worth it. That evening when she returned to her room, she found a sketchbook lying on her desk wrapped in brown paper. A note was tucked beneath the string. For new beginnings, A. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, staring at it for a long moment before untying the string. The pages were blank and smooth, waiting. She ran her fingers over them, and for the first time in months, she picked up a pencil. At first her lines were shaky, fragments of memory faces blurred by tears. Then they became clearer, a hand reaching through rain, a pair of eyes watching her wake up the faint outline of lavender fields. She did not notice the tears falling until they blurred the ink. She laughed softly through them, realizing they were not the same kind of tears she had shed before. These felt lighter, almost cleansing. In the days that followed, she began spending more time in the conservatory. She painted small pieces and left them near the windows. The staff started to notice the woman who once barely spoke now smiled when they passed. Adrien noticed too. One evening he found her standing in front of an unfinished canvas. The colors were soft shades of blue and silver. That looks like rain, he said. It was supposed to, she answered. But now I think it looks more like light trying to come through. He studied the painting, then her. Maybe both can exist at the same time. Their eyes met in the fading sunlight, and for a brief moment neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It was full of things unsaid, of something new forming between two people who had both stopped believing in second chances. When she turned back to the canvas, Adrien quietly placed a lavender sprig on the table beside her and said, "Keep painting. The world could use more of that kind of light." After he left, Elena looked at the flower, then at her reflection in the glass. For the first time, she did not see a woman who had been left behind. She saw someone who might finally be finding her way home. Weeks passed, and the air inside Wingston Private Care Center began to feel different. The staff noticed that Elena no longer avoided conversation. She greeted people, helped arrange flowers in the lobby, and even shared her drawings with the nurses. The quiet sadness in her eyes had softened into something gentler, like dawn after a long night. One afternoon she found Adrien standing in the courtyard speaking with a group of volunteers. He looked calm as always, but there was a hint of weariness in his face that she had not seen before. When the meeting ended, she approached him with a cup of tea. "You look like you could use this," she said. He accepted it with a small smile. "Thank you. Long day. Are you all right?" she asked. "I will be," he said, glancing toward the fountain. "We are expanding the center. It should be a good thing, but it brings back memories." Elena followed his gaze. "Your wife?" He nodded. "She dreamed of opening a branch in another city. I promised her I would finish it, but I have delayed for years. Maybe it is time," Elena said softly. "You have given so many people a second chance. Maybe this is yours." Adrien looked at her for a long moment before saying, "You sound like you have been listening to my own advice." She smiled. "Maybe I have." That evening he invited her to accompany him to the annual charity gala that supported Wingston's projects. Elena hesitated, feeling unprepared for such an event, but he reassured her. "You belong there more than you think," he said. "You have become part of this place." When the night arrived, Elena stood before the mirror in her suite, wearing a simple navy blue dress that Clara had helped her borrow. Her hands trembled slightly as she fastened the broken pendant around her neck, the same one that had cracked the night she collapsed. Somehow it felt right to wear it again. The ballroom shimmered with gold light and soft music. Adrien met her at the entrance, dressed in a black suit, his expression warm but protective. "You look beautiful," he said. "Do not flatter me," she teased lightly. "I might start believing you." "Then you should," he replied. As the evening went on, Elena watched Adrien move through the crowd, graceful, composed, shaking hands with donors and doctors. But she noticed something else too, how he stopped often to talk with patients, how his tone softened when he listened. He was not a distant millionaire. He was a man who had rebuilt his life around helping others do the same. Later, when the speeches ended, Adrien walked to the stage. The crowd fell silent as he began to speak. 3 years ago, he said, I lost someone I loved deeply. For a long time I believed that pain had destroyed me. But the truth is, it changed me. It taught me that healing is not forgetting, it is remembering with kindness. His eyes found Elena's in the crowd. This year we dedicate the new Wingston branch to everyone who has ever fallen and decided to stand again. Applause filled the room. Elena felt tears burn behind her eyes. She looked down, realizing she was holding the small lavender sprig Adrien had given her days earlier. After the event, they stepped outside onto the balcony. The city sparkled below, alive and endless. The wind tugged gently at her hair as she turned to him. You were incredible, she said. So were you, he replied. You did not run away this time. She smiled faintly. Maybe I finally stopped being afraid of the rain. A pause lingered between them, soft and comfortable. Adrien's gaze lowered to the cracked pendant at her neck. You kept it, he said. It reminds me that broken things can still be beautiful, she answered. Something in his expression shifted, admiration mixed with something deeper, something he was not yet ready to name. Elena, he said quietly, I do not want to overstep, but you make this place feel alive again. She looked up at him, the lights reflecting in her eyes. And you make it feel safe. For a long moment they just stood there, the city humming around them, the night cool and steady. Then Adrien said softly, I do not know what happens next, but I hope you will stay. Elena took a deep breath, the lavender scent from her wrist mingling with the breeze. I think I will, she said. As they turned to go back inside, a light rain began to fall, gentle, almost like a blessing. Elena tilted her face toward the sky, letting the drops touch her skin. For the first time, she did not wish the rain to stop. She simply let it fall. The next few weeks at Wingston Center moved with a quiet rhythm. The air grew colder as autumn arrived, and golden leaves gathered along the stone paths in the garden. Elena's days were filled with warmth again, painting in the mornings, helping with art therapy sessions in the afternoon, and walking with Adrien in the evenings. She had become more than a patient now. She was part of the heartbeat of the place. The nurses smiled when they saw her coming down the hall with her sketchbook under her arm. Adrien often watched from a distance, knowing that the woman who had once collapsed in the rain was now helping others find their own strength. One morning, as Elena was teaching a small group how to paint, Adrien appeared at the door. His expression was calm but unreadable. Could we talk, he asked. They walked to the terrace overlooking the garden. The sky was overcast, heavy with clouds. Adrien leaned on the railing hands, folded his voice lower than usual. There is something I have been avoiding, he said. The new branch in Seattle is ready. The board expects me to move there for at least a year. Elena froze. When in 2 weeks, he said quietly. The words hit her harder than she expected. She tried to smile, but it faltered. That is wonderful, Adrien. It is what you have been working toward. Yes, he said, though his tone held no celebration. But I do not want to leave this behind. She looked at him, searching his eyes for meaning. You mean the center, he hesitated. I mean everything that came with it. Her heart beat faster, but she looked away, afraid to read too much into his words. You will do great there, she said softly. You always do. Adrien gave a small nod, though the silence that followed felt heavier than the clouds above. I would like you to run the art program while I am gone, he said finally. You have given these people something real. Hope. Elena swallowed hard. I do not know if I can. You already are, he said. You just do not see it yet. That evening Elena stayed late in the conservatory, painting by the light of a small lamp. She tried to focus, but every brushstroke felt like goodbye. The door opened quietly behind her. I did not mean to interrupt, Adrien said, stepping inside. You are leaving, she whispered. It feels like everything is changing again. He took a slow breath. Change is not always loss, Elena. Sometimes it is just the next step forward. She turned to him, eyes bright with unshed tears. You pulled me out of the rain when I wanted to disappear. What am I supposed to do when you are gone? Adrien closed the distance between them. Keep living, he said. Keep helping others do the same. That is how you thank me. The words caught in her throat. She wanted to say something more, but his calm, steady presence said enough. They stood in silence, the hum of rain beginning against the glass roof above them. Finally, Adrien said softly, "Promise me one thing. Do not hide from the storm anymore. You were never meant to." Elena met his gaze. "And you," she whispered, "do not forget that even healers need someone to care for them." He smiled, a quiet, tired smile that reached his eyes. "Maybe someday I will let someone try." When he left the room, Elena stared at the painting she had been working on, a woman standing beneath a gray sky, her face lifted toward the rain. For the first time, she understood the picture completely. It was not about sadness anymore. It was about survival. The morning Adrien left for Seattle was gray and quiet. The staff gathered in the lobby to see him off, their smiles warm but tinged with sadness. Elena stood near the entrance, holding a small envelope in her hands. She had stayed up all night deciding whether to give it to him. When he turned to her, the world seemed to slow down for a moment. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice calm but soft, "for everything you have done for me and for everyone here." Adrien looked at her, his expression gentle. "You do not owe me anything, Elena. You changed this place more than I ever could." She handed him the envelope. "Then consider this a reminder. For the days when you forget why you started." He opened it just enough to see what was inside, a small watercolor painting of lavender under a silver sky. Beneath it, a handwritten line read, "Healing is not forgetting. It is remembering without pain." Adrien's voice grew quiet. "You remembered." "I did," she said. "Because you taught me how." For a second, neither of them spoke. Then he stepped closer and brushed a raindrop, or maybe a tear, from her cheek. "Take care of yourself, Elena." "I will," she said. "You too." He left soon after, his car disappearing down the long driveway as the rain began to fall again. Elena stood under the awning, watching the taillights fade until they were swallowed by the mist. Something inside her ached, but it was not the same pain as before. This one felt like growth, slow, steady, necessary. The following weeks passed quietly. The art therapy program thrived under her care. Patients came and went, each carrying stories of loss and rediscovery. Elena found herself listening, comforting, and reminding them that pain did not have to be the ending. Every time she repeated those words, she realized she was also reminding herself. Every Sunday evening she received a short message from Adrien, sometimes just a single line. "First patient walked again today. Seattle is colder than I expected. I hope you are still painting." And every time she replied, her words were simple but sincere. "I am." Winter arrived early that year. Snow dusted the gardens and settled on the lavender fields, turning them pale white. Elena often found herself sitting by the window with her sketchbook, drawing scenes from memory. The rain-soaked night she met him, the first sunrise she saw from her hospital bed, the way he smiled without needing to say anything. One night, Clara joined her. "You miss him," she said gently. Elena smiled, her eyes still on the sketch. "I do, but I think missing someone can also mean being grateful that they were ever here." Clara nodded. "He will be back. People like him always find their way home." Elena closed the sketchbook and looked out at the snow falling beyond the window. "Maybe," she said softly, "and maybe by the time he does, I will be ready to tell him that he was the one who saved me." That night she dreamed of the rain again, but this time she was not collapsing in it. She was walking forward through it, her face lifted toward the sky, her hands open. When she woke, the first light of dawn filled the room. The world outside was quiet, but inside her chest, something steady and bright had begun to grow, a feeling that whispered, "This is not goodbye." 3 months passed before Adrien returned. It was early spring, and the first lavender buds had begun to bloom again around the garden walls. The air carried that faint sweetness of new beginnings, the same scent that had once filled the hallways when Elena first arrived, broken and lost. That morning the staff buzzed with quiet excitement. Word spread quickly. Adrien Ward was back in town. The new Seattle branch had launched successfully, but no one knew whether he planned to stay. Elena was in the art room arranging supplies for her afternoon session when Clara rushed in, her eyes wide with a smile. "He is here," she whispered. "He is in the lobby right now." Elena froze, her hand, still resting on a jar of paintbrushes. She took a deep breath before she turned. "How does he look?" "Exactly the same," Clara said. "Except maybe calmer." Elena laughed softly, brushing her palms on her apron. "Then I should not keep him waiting." When she stepped into the lobby, the sight of him hit her like a memory she had been replaying for weeks. Adrien stood near the reception desk, speaking with the staff sunlight spilling through the tall windows behind him. He looked the same composed kind, quietly steady, but when his eyes met hers, something inside her shifted. "Elena," he said, his voice low, familiar. "Welcome home," she answered. They walked together through the corridor toward the garden. For a while neither spoke. The silence between them was full of meaning, comfort, gratitude, and a quiet question neither dared to ask yet. "The Seattle branch is beautiful," Adrien finally said. "It is running well thanks to the people you trained here. They learned more from you than you realize." "I only reminded them of what they already had," she said. "You did the hard part." He smiled. "I think we both did." When they reached the garden, Elena noticed something new, a wooden sign near the path that read "The Second Chance Garden." Beneath it was a line carved in elegant script. "Healing is not forgetting. It is remembering without pain." Her breath caught. "You kept it," she whispered. "I told you it was a reminder," Adrien said. "Now it belongs to everyone who walks through here." The emotion in her eyes was too strong to hide. "You could have put your name on it." "I did not build this place to be remembered," he said softly. "I built it so others could remember themselves." They stood together, watching a few patients walking along the path, their laughter light against the sound of wind and distant birds. For a long moment Elena felt time stop. It was the same peace she had once seen in him, the peace she had thought she would never find. "Adrien," she said quietly, "I wanted to tell you something before you left, but I never did." He looked at her, his expression open and patient. "Then tell me now." She met his gaze. "That night in the rain I thought I was finished. But you did not just save my life. You gave it back to me." His voice softened. "You were never lost, Elena. You just needed someone to walk beside you until you could see yourself again." She felt tears rise, but they were warm, not heavy. "And now?" she asked. "Now," he said, taking a slow breath, "maybe it is my turn to learn what healing really means." A faint breeze moved between them, carrying the scent of lavender. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the same cracked pendant she had once worn. "I had it fixed," he said quietly. "I thought maybe you would want it back." Elena looked down at it, her hand trembling as she touched the cool metal. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "So are second chances," he said. The garden fell silent, except for the soft hum of life around them. And as the sun broke through the clouds, Elena realized that the world had finally stopped feeling like something to survive. It felt like something to live. That evening the garden glowed under strings of soft lights. The staff had prepared a small celebration to welcome Adrien home and to honor the success of both centers. Tables were arranged beneath the blooming lavender trees, their purple petals brushing gently against the air. The scent was warm and sweet, filling every corner like a quiet reminder of everything they had overcome. Elena helped carry trays from the kitchen, laughing with Clara as they arranged flowers in glass jars. She could hear the gentle murmur of music, a piano melody that drifted through the courtyard, the same song Adrien used to play on quiet mornings. When she turned, she saw him at the piano once again, his fingers moving easily across the keys. This time he did not play out of grief. He played with peace. When the song ended, he looked up, meeting her eyes across the crowd. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. Later, as guests began to leave, Adrien found her standing near the edge of the garden, where the lights grew dimmer and the night felt softer. She was gazing up at the stars, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. "You disappeared before I could say thank you," he said, stepping closer. She smiled faintly. "I was letting everyone else have their moment. Tonight is about you, not me." He shook his head. "None of this would exist without you." Elena turned to face him. The light caught her hair, making it shimmer like gold against the dark sky. "You gave me a place to heal," she said. "All I did was learn how to breathe again." Adrien hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "There is something I have been writing for weeks. I was not sure if I would ever give it to you." He handed it to her. She unfolded it carefully. Inside were sketches of the new Wingston branch, the gardens, the therapy rooms, the art studio, and in the corner her name etched beneath the heading Art Director. Elena looked up, stunned. "Adrien, this is real," he said simply. "I want you to lead it. You built this place with your strength, with your compassion. You are what healing looks like." Her eyes filled with tears. "You cannot mean that." "I do," he said. "And if you say yes, we will build it together." The world seemed to still around them. She held the paper against her chest, unable to speak for a moment. "You once told me everyone deserves to begin again," she whispered. "Maybe this is how I do." Adrien smiled, a quiet, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Maybe this is how we both do." The wind moved softly through the lavender, carrying the scent of rain from somewhere far away. The first drops began to fall cool and gentle, speckling the wooden tables and the path beneath their feet. Elena laughed quietly. "Of course it would rain tonight." Adrien glanced up at the sky. "I think it is just saying hello." They stood beneath the falling rain, neither moving to run for cover. Adrien reached out, brushing a drop from her cheek. "Do you still hate the rain?" "Not anymore," she said. "It brought me here." He looked at her for a long moment. "Then maybe we should stop trying to stay dry." Elena nodded, her heart steady and full. For the first time, the rain did not feel like an ending, it felt like a beginning. As the lights shimmered around them, and the scent of lavender deepened with the rain, she realized that she was no longer the woman who had collapsed in the storm. She was someone new, someone alive, standing beside the man who had shown her that healing was not about forgetting the past, but learning to love again in spite of it. A year later, the Wingston Foundation opened its newest branch on the outskirts of Seattle. The air that morning was cool and clean, carrying the scent of rain over the freshly planted lavender gardens. Reporters and guests filled the courtyard, their voices mingling with the gentle music that drifted from the open windows. At the front of the crowd, Elena stood beside Adrien, her name printed on the program beneath the title Art Director, the Second Chance House. She held a bouquet of lavender tied with a silk ribbon, her heart steady but full. This place was more than another building. It was the proof that pain could be transformed into purpose. Adrien stepped up to the podium. His voice carried through the quiet morning, calm and certain. A year ago he began this project was just an idea, a dream built from loss and hope. Today it stands because of the people who refuse to give up. This house is not a hospital. It is a promise that no one has to heal alone. He turned slightly toward Elena as he said it. She met his gaze, her eyes bright with emotion. The applause that followed rolled through the courtyard like thunder, but for them it felt distant. When the ceremony ended, the guests moved inside to tour the center. The hallways were lined with art paintings created by former patients. Near the entrance hung a familiar piece, a woman standing in the rain, her hands open to the sky. Beneath it was a small plaque that read, "For the night that saved me, E.W." Adrien stopped in front of it, smiling softly. "I was wondering when you would display that one," he said. Elena joined him, her fingers brushing the frame. "I almost did not. It was the hardest one to paint." "Because it hurt?" he asked. "Because it reminded me that I survived," she said, "and that sometimes surviving is enough." They walked together through the new garden behind the building. Rows of lavender swayed gently in the wind, and in the center stood a wooden bench with a small engraving. "Healing begins here." Adrien sat down, motioning for her to join him. "It feels strange, does it not?" he said. "Everything we went through brought us right back to where it all began." Elena looked at the clouds drifting above. "Except this time it does not hurt anymore." He nodded. "That is what healing looks like." For a moment neither spoke. The world around them felt perfectly still. Then Adrien reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have been carrying this for months," he said quietly. "I was waiting for the right day." Elena's eyes widened as he opened it, a silver ring shaped like a single drop of rain, simple and beautiful. "You do not have to answer right now," he said. "I just wanted you to know that I am not going anywhere. Not anymore." Tears filled her eyes, not from sorrow but from gratitude. She took his hand, her voice barely a whisper. "You already gave me everything I did not know I needed. But yes, the answer is yes." He smiled, closing the box and placing it in her palm. "Then keep it. It belongs to both of us." The rain began to fall softly again, just as it had that first night. But this time there was laughter beneath it, her laughter clear and full. Adrien reached for her hand, and together they walked through the garden, the lavender bending gently around their steps. The voiceover closed softly, the music fading behind it. Once she collapsed in the rain to forget her pain. Now she walks through it to remember how she was saved. Because healing does not mean the storm ends, it means you learn to dance in the rain.